All right, well, good morning. It looks like we're only streaming on Twitch this morning. A little bit of a difficulty on the text side, and that's not my phone, so I'm going to ignore it. Anyway, welcome to the King's Report for 16th year of Cheongi, the 6th month and the 3rd day by the heavenly calendar. Whose phone is that? All right, sorry about that. Someone's phone was ringing and the owner's not here, and you handed it off to someone, asked them to resolve the situation. My Rumble stream is not coming on. Okay. All right. Anyway, this is Tim Elder, and let's do the best we can. We have some difficulties with the tech, but we'll do the best we can. Going to see what's going on around the kingdom. And right now, let's see, in Chongpyeong, Tennessee, we have 65 degrees and clear. Is that really what we have? Let me update. This is actually a bit old information. Yes, 65 degrees is correct. Clear is also correct. Well, sunny now. And today, high of 87, humid with some sun, then turning cloudy, a thunderstorm this afternoon. And then in Father's hometown, Cheongju, North Pyongan province in North Korea, it is currently 80 degrees, getting down to 70 tonight, mostly cloudy and humid through the night, and shower late. Tomorrow, high of 81, thick cloud cover and humid, a passing shower or two in the afternoon. And then at the Cheonggyeong Palace in northeast Pennsylvania, currently 62 degrees and cloudy, getting up to 72 today, mostly cloudy with a couple of showers. 63 for a low tonight, cloudy with a shower in places. And then at the Liberty Rock RV Park and Campground in Limestone County, Texas, currently 70 degrees, and today getting up to 92, mostly sunny. And then tonight, oops, I got an ad popping up there. Tonight, partly cloudy and humid, low of 74. And then at the Suncheon Palace in Korea, it is currently 79 degrees, getting down to 74 tonight. Humid, increasing cloudiness this evening, followed by low clouds. Tomorrow, 93 for a high, a morning shower or two, otherwise hot, humid. And then at the Gunma Palaces in Japan, currently 80 degrees, and getting down to 67 tonight with partly cloudy skies. Tomorrow, hot with times of sun and clouds, possible danger of dehydration and heat stroke while doing extraneous activities, high of 92. And then in Ilan, Taiwan, we have 82 degrees right now, with clear skies, clear through the night, low of 77. Tomorrow, sunny to partly cloudy, with a couple of showers in the afternoon, high of 94. All right, and then let's go to Father's Word. And we have here, let me get a little bit of light on this. Okay. Let's see, I'm in the Life of True Filial Piety, chapter 4. Very beginning of chapter 4, and the section 1 of chapter 4 is subtitled God's Hope. And let's see here. I think we've been to here before. So let's go to the second paragraph. I think we probably did the first paragraph sometime before. So, if someone is to be the most filial among most filial, the most loyal, and chung song meaning and most truthful, I guess. If a person is to be that kind of person, and in order to attend God, we cannot do that separately. In other words, individuals cannot do it separately. You have to do it together. So, well, I think you cannot do the three separately. To be filial, loyal, and sincere or truthful. Song is sincere, truthful, something like that. Okay, you have to do those three things together. And God's desire is for a person who accomplishes all three of those simultaneously. That the person can be a filial child, a loyal child, And also, oh, I see, Song is a saint, can be a saint among saints. Okay, so that is interesting. Okay, so instead of a sincerity, I should have said saint. So want a person to be a saint. That is the person, so both filial child, loyal child, and saint. And a saint among saints. That is the kind of person that God is looking for. So, seen from that perspective, you have to say that that is exactly the kind of existence, that kind of being that God is. Okay, praise God. Yes. So loyal, filial, loyal, and saintly or holy. Holy. Okay. Let me turn off my flashlight. Okay, there we go. All right. So yeah, I wish the yeah, it's not coming on. All right. All right. So right now the headline this morning actually is that China and the United States and China have come to a deal, and China just a very short while ago, 2 hours ago, confirmed this, and so let me go to that story. Relationship between China and the United States is very, very important, and of course, if I've been saying, President Trump, his most important task is to bring down or obliterate the Chinese Communist Party. And let's hope that this is something that is happening in the process of that taking place. So anyway, China confirmed that it had agreed with the U.S. to approve the accelerated export of rare earths after President Donald Trump said he had signed a trade deal with Beijing, and said Washington will also lift some of its restrictions on Beijing in return. A spokesperson for the Chinese Ministry of Commerce said on Friday, June 27th, that leaders of the two countries had now approved the details of the agreement. So that will be today, just a couple of hours ago. Trump, talking about negotiating trade deals during his reciprocal tariffs pause on Thursday, said we just signed with China yesterday. So I guess the signature actually took place on Wednesday. The U.S. technology and manufacturing sectors rely on a stable supply of rare earths used in electronics, defense systems, and renewable energy, and China is a key supplier. Yeah, in other words, China is a key supplier for our weapons. Oops. Didn't see that one coming, did we? When we opened up our markets. Rare earths are strategically vital to the U.S. as they play a critical role in advanced manufacturing and defense industries. Cementing the agreement is also progress towards stabilizing trade relations between the world's two largest economies. It is a sign that the temporary tariff reductions will now become permanent once other outstanding issues are resolved. Cementing the agreement is also progress towards stabilizing trade relations between the world's two largest economies. It is a sign that the temporary tariff reductions will become permanent once the other outstanding issues are resolved. Okay. The agreement relates to the earlier tariff-slashing U.S.-China trade talks in Geneva, which stalled over American concerns that Beijing was dragging its feet on exporting vital rare earths. They held further talks in London after a call between Trump and Chinese President Xi Jinping to break the deadlock, and the two sides kept talking until the news that a deal had finally been cemented. Ahead of the deal's confirmation, the Chinese Commerce Ministry had announced on Thursday that it was speeding up approvals of exports of rare earths. The U.S. and China share the world's largest bilateral trade relationship, with two-way goods trade valued at over $582.4 billion in 2024, according to data from the Office of the United States Trade Representative. United States Trade Representative. While the rare earths agreement marks progress, multiple long-standing trade conflicts between the U.S. and China remain unresolved. These include tariff levels on hundreds of billions of dollars in goods, disputes over intellectual property protection, or the lack thereof, and concerns about technology transfer and forced joint ventures involving U.S. companies in China. In other words, if you want to do business in China, you must have a Chinese partner who you will teach and you will transfer all sorts of technology to, and you will allow them to learn what you're doing so that eventually they can kick you out and take over the business themselves. That's basically what that forced joint venture means. And many, many American companies, not just American, Korean, Japanese companies have gone through the same situation. I don't know why people insist on doing business in China. The Trump administration has also imposed a 20% fentanyl tariff on China for its role in supplying precursor chemicals needed to produce the highly potent synthetic opioid, which has led to hundreds of thousands of drug overdose deaths in the United States. China and the U.S. are in talks about tackling fentanyl, and Trump officials expressed optimism about the progress made after the meeting in Geneva. But as long as the demand is there, someone is going to supply that demand. And so President Trump really needs to work on the demand side of that equation, and specifically he needs to do something about encouraging two-family heterosexual families. That will not just the fentanyl issue, the drug issue, but also the population issue and crime issue as well, and so forth, so that the United States can start to recover from its current decline, to turn that decline around. Until he does that, the decline is going to continue, I'm afraid. And this kind of a trade deal with China is maybe it will have some effect, but very little in the long run, I think. It's really things that are going on in the United States that are truly the problem. Additional contentious points involve market access for key American industries, continued U.S. export controls on advanced semiconductors, and regulatory actions targeting American firms operating in China. These issues have driven a cycle of reciprocal tariffs and have made further comprehensive agreements difficult to achieve in recent years. Trump said in the China deal, we are starting to open up China. Never heard that before, have we? Actually, we have. We've been hearing that for the past 40 years, right? And U.S. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick told Bloomberg TV that the China deal was signed and sealed, adding the president likes to close these deals himself. He's the deal maker. We're going to have deal after deal. And I don't doubt it. Certainly President Trump likes to do this. But I don't know if he really, I'm sure he must understand what's going on with China, right? I mean, he's not a neophyte with China. Well, I guess we'll have to trust him on this one, but so a spokesperson for the China Commerce Ministry said it is hoped that the U.S. and China will move toward each other. In other words, they will stay still and we move toward them, to utilize the bilateral economic and trade consultation mechanisms in accordance with the important consensus and expectations set during the June 5 call between the two heads of state, continuously enhance mutual understanding, reduce misperceptions, strengthen cooperation, and jointly promote the healthy, stable, and sustainable development of China-U.S. economic and trade relations. That whole paragraph is one sentence. It is hoped, let's take it apart a little bit, it is hoped the U.S. and China will move toward each other. So they're waiting for us to come and bow down before the Emperor Xi Jinping. Continue to utilize the bilateral economic and trade consultation mechanisms in accordance with the important consensus and expectations set during the June 5 call. All right, so anyway, what's next? China and the U.S. are expected to implement provisions of the agreement in the coming weeks. Ongoing negotiations will likely focus on tariff relief, intellectual property reforms, and high-tech export controls. The U.S. is also expected to announce fresh trade deals with a number of its partners, including Japan and India, that will reduce tariffs and other barriers. So the deadline for the tariffs, in other words, the Liberation Day, Independence Day tariffs, is coming up in less than 2 weeks. And so President Trump, announced 125%, something like that. And then said, okay, since you really asked, I'll give you 90 days. And that 90-day period ends in about 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, about 12 days from now, I think. So we'll see what comes up during the next few weeks. But as this article says, Japan, India, and I know other countries are also hoping to settle a trade agreement during that time, so that they can avoid all those tariffs. Now, how is the market reacting? And as you know, I like to look at the market and how it reacts to these kinds of news, because, as I say, these people are really putting money on the line, or their careers on the line if they're using other people's money. So let's look at how the foreign exchange market is doing. And the dollar is slightly up, but basically unchanged, up 6 basis points. Not a big difference. And let's see, the dollar's weaker against the euro, the pound, and it is stronger. Well, it is weaker also against the Japanese yen. This may be that investors are thinking that, okay, now, let me bring this down just a little bit. Now investors are thinking, okay, now Powell may actually cut rates in July. And if that happens, then investing in or saving your money in the United States becomes less attractive. And so people will be taking their money out of the United States in preparation for that, or anticipating maybe a rate cut in July. And is that bad? You know, people seem to think that the dollar going down is somehow bad for President Trump. But I think I've shown you this graph before, but let's take a look at it again. This is the 6-month graph of the dollar index. Let me share this with you. And as you can see, for the last 6 months, in other words, since end of last year, it's been going down. And actually, if I get this out of the way, Trump was inaugurated right there. Okay, that's January 20th. And so especially since President Trump's inauguration, it's been on a steady decline against this basket of currencies. As you know, the dollar index is a index of the dollar against a basket of currencies of the major trading partners. Mostly that means the euro and the yen, and it has a couple of other, 2 or 3 other currencies in there as well. And you know, in my opinion, my understanding, not my opinion, I don't really deserve to have an opinion. I'm not an economist or anything, but in my understanding, Trump wants this. This is intentional. This is intentional. Here it was up a little bit during the war there in May, right? But then it's been resumed against May 13th. It resumed its downward trend. So, but this makes American exports cheaper, and it makes imports more expensive. And so, in other words, it's kind of like the tariffs, right? And right now, today, 97.2. When Trump was inaugurated, what was it? June 20. It looks like 109. Okay, so about 12-ish percent, 12% or so, something like that. It has gone down since President Trump was inaugurated, and that's the same as a 12% tariff almost. But this isn't just one currency; it's a basket of currencies. But especially against European imports and Japanese imports, there has been this sort of non-tariff method of reducing imports and helping to resolve the U.S. balance of trade. So, with this, I think probably it looks like it's going to continue its downward trend, and so we'll see what happens as we go along. But that is it. So that the President Trump is trying to rebalance America's relationship with the world. People will say, "Oh, it's because people are losing faith in the dollar." I don't think so. Well, they say, "But look, the number of or the amount of settlements taking place, financial settlements taking place, and the dollar is going down. Well, there was a period in the past when it was even less than what it is now, but people were not screaming it back then. But it is true, though, that obviously the system that was established following President Nixon's move in 1971 to close the gold window and the beginning of the floating foreign exchange system in 1971, that is coming to an end. 54 years later, is it? And a new, some sort of a new international financial system is coming into being. We don't know what that is. Will we go back to gold? Are we going to go back to something that failed us already once? Are we going to go back to that? Would seem to be a little bit of a gamble to go back to something that failed us once already. And the problem with gold, the problem that we had with gold, of course, was that, the United States at the Bretton Woods Conference in the 1940s said, we promise that we will not create more money or more currency than we have gold to back it up with. We promise. You can believe us. Trust us. Yeah, that didn't work out, did it? That did not work out. By the late 60s, it became quite obvious to, especially the European countries, especially France and others, that the United States did not have the gold, or soon was going to run out of the gold to back its currency, and so they started to demand to have their gold in a physical delivery, and then basically in 1971, the United States defaulted on that promise that it made at the Bretton Woods Conference. And now, here we are, and the United States is in difficulty again, and we'll have to see what happens. And so amazing that right now central banks around the world are buying gold like crazy. They're buying gold like crazy, especially China, but also other countries as well, as if they think that we're going back onto the gold standard. But do you see that happening? I don't really think that's going to happen. I mean, we saw how gold failed once before, and wants to keep it from failing again. With gold, you have the problem of who's going to store the gold, all right? Because you cannot. It's not easy to move it around. One time, France, when they wanted physical delivery of their gold, they sent a naval battleship, warship, not battleship, but warship, to pick it up. and other countries too, they said, okay, we want our gold back, and it took a lot of time and for them to get their gold. So gold is difficult to move around. It's difficult to move around. And so you have to have someone who stores it and says, okay, this is yours, and we got this here, this there. And you have to be able to trust that person, or that country, whatever. And like the United States, you have to be able to trust that they're going to keep their promises regarding how much money that they're going to create. So not create more money than they actually have in gold bullion to back it up. So gold looks like, I don't know, doesn't seem to me like it's going to have much of a chance of being the international reserve again. There is talk about having, multiple reserve currencies. Okay, that's one option that's being floated around, and we'll see how that works out. Okay. All right, let's see. So U.S. and China making nice this morning, which is good, I guess. But remember, though, that we want in the Chunuk view of the world, we want the Chinese Communist Party to be taken down, to come down, be taken down, and for the people of China to be liberated from under the communist tyranny that they've been suffering since 1949. And probably the majority of them will say, no, we're quite happy with what we have. That's because they don't know what is possible. And they will say, oh, look at America, look at America. Look at it. We don't want the kind of America where you have, homeless people, and you have race riots and all sorts. The Chinese propaganda never misses an opportunity to show what a terrible place America is, so that people will think that they have it good in China. But what is happening in China, though, is that when freedom is suppressed, creativity is suppressed, and the only thing they can do really is to steal from others. And they've done a good job, of working with what they've stolen and coming up with sort of new applications and stuff like that. But they don't have the ability, though, to actually create something that is completely new. Right now, let me get this. See, China laser. Okay. This is actually from 5 days ago. And I'm sure the Chinese are going to say, look what we did. China strikes hard. Chinese satellite pulverizes Starlink with a 2-watt laser 36,000 kilometers from Earth. And I thought maybe you think you'd do that when you see this headline. Maybe they destroyed Starlink, a Starlink satellite. No, they didn't, actually. That's not what this is about. Wait till you see the content. This is kind of clickbait there. A Chinese satellite has just achieved something no one expected, outpacing Starlink with a 2-watt laser from 36,000 kilometers away. And that's what, about 22,000 miles or so, something like that. And a stunning leap forward for space technology. Let me increase this for you. The Chinese scientists have achieved an unprecedented breakthrough in satellite communication using a laser as weak as a nightlight to outpace the speeds of Starlink. Operating from an altitude of 36,000 kilometers, more than 60 times higher than SpaceX's Starlink network, this Chinese satellite has demonstrated a level of data transmission far superior to what Starlink can offer, pushing the boundaries of what many thought possible. And let's go ahead and assume that this is actually true. I have no way of confirming or not confirming this myself. Could it be possible that this is propaganda? It's possible. But right now, anyway, let's assume that it's true. At the heart of this success is a 2-watt laser, which is able to transmit data at an astounding 1 gigabyte per second. This speed is 5 times faster than Starlink's capabilities, which are limited to a few megabytes per second, despite operating at a lower altitude of around 550 kilometers, according to Interesting Engineering. The laser, though faint as a candle's glow, managed to push data through Earth's turbulent atmosphere, overcoming a challenge that has long plagued satellite communications: atmospheric turbulence. The team behind this achievement, led by Professor Wu Jian from Peking University and Liu Chao from the Chinese Academy of Sciences, developed an innovative method to address the interference caused by atmospheric turbulence. Their solution, known as AOMDR Synergy, combines technical stuff. One of the primary obstacles in laser-based satellite communications is the atmospheric turbulence that distorts the light, making it difficult to maintain a stable connection. Previous efforts to overcome this challenge involved using either one of these or the other, but both methods were insufficient. Okay, and so forth. So the implications of this breakthrough extend beyond simple speed improvements. The successful transmission of data over such a vast distance with minimal signal degradation could pave the way for more efficient and faster global data exchanges. The research team's work also promises significant improvements in the reliability of satellite communications, which could be transformative for industries relying on real-time data transmission, such as media, telecommunications, and even space exploration. All right, so China says, oh yeah, look what we did. We're superior. Well, first of all, remember that it is not knowledge that puts you at the top of the hierarchy. It is not knowledge. It is not money. It is not power. It is only a true love, God's love. Because the archangel had this kind of information, could have transmitted this to Adam and Eve. Within Adam's generation, perhaps they could have developed, or at least 2 or 3 generations later, they could have developed all the stuff that we have today with the archangel's education. But as a result of the fall, human beings fell into physical and spiritual ignorance, and we've been clawing our way back ever since with God's guidance. And this is sort of another step on the ladder, I suppose, of coming back towards what would have been possible back then. But the important thing, though, is that there has to be a society where people can first of all, have a relationship with God, a society that allows for the existence of God, and China already fails in that point. And also, each individual has to be able to form a relationship with God according to his own prayer life and life of faith. When Father went to visit Gorbachev in the Kremlin, when Gorbachev was still president of the Soviet Union, he said to Gorbachev, "You need to allow religious freedom. Allow religious freedom." And that was the first thing that he wanted Gorbachev to do. The other one was to open diplomatic relations with South Korea. Okay. So China, they can do this kind of stuff, but if they do this, then they will be using it towards what? God's glory? No, they will be using it towards Satan's glory, and so it will just make matters worse for humanity if they are able to use this to strengthen their position, strengthen their control over humanity in the future. So let's see what is going to be, see what's going to be coming down, what the actual implications of this will be over the next 5 to 10 years. Okay. All right, let's see. This is an interesting story. Costa Rican court orders migrants deported from U.S. to be released. Okay. Well, yeah, I mean, I don't think they broke any Costa Rican laws, probably, so they can. Some of them will try to come back, I'm sure. Yes. 6 U.S. citizens detained in South Korea for trying to send rice and Bibles to North Korea. There are these Christians in South Korea, mostly Christians, but also it's people who have come from North Korea that are consistently, trying to send information and also food and dollars to North Korea. Balloons, they've been doing balloons, but in this case, actually, interestingly, they put things in a bottle, a plastic bottle, and threw them into the tide at a time when the tide was taking things from the south to the north. This is in the Han River estuary. The Han River estuary is actually the north-south boundary, but goes through the Han River estuary. So technically, yes, if you time it just right, you can do it so that something that you throw into the ocean, or basically it's the ocean, will be pushed by the tide over into North Korea. And North Korea, they haven't commented on this particular situation, but on the balloons, they were very sensitive. And the balloons carried not just dollars, but also they carried propaganda and news actually about Kim Jong-un and stuff like that. It's hoping to communicate something to the North Korean people. But North Korea has become sometimes very, very angry about these kinds of things going on. Okay. So anyway, the new leftist administration in South Korea, of course, is cracking down on this. North Korea doesn't like it, therefore this leftist administration also does not like it. And so these people were detained, U.S. citizens have been detained. I don't think they'll get punished too severely. They'll probably get deported to the United States. Okay. All right, let's see here. And let's go to Newsmax. And actually, by the way, next, or actually beginning tomorrow, Saturday, I think, yes, I think I'm going to have to delay the King's Report for 1 hour each day. Let me just make sure of that. Let me just make sure of that. Yes, I think 7:30. Yeah. I'm going to have to delay it 1 hour each day. So right now, we're broadcasting from, what is it, 7 to 8 a.m. Eastern. So I'm going to have to change that to 8 to 9 Eastern. 8. Is that right? Wait. No. Yeah. Is that going to be right? I'm a little bit confused right now. Let me make sure here. No. Giving the wrong time is always a bad thing to do. Okay. Yeah, right now, I'm broadcasting from 7 to 8 Eastern, that's right, Eastern time. And from tomorrow, just for a week and a half, from tomorrow and then through July 9th, I'm going to have to broadcast an hour later from 8 to 9 Eastern. And then on July 10th, we'll go back to the current schedule. So I'd like to ask for your understanding on that, okay? I have a little thing going on here that's going to require me to do that. I have a scheduling conflict. That here it says, ICE Director, Americans ought to feel safe on 4th of July. And I already said, I think yesterday was it, don't feel safe, okay? Please, don't feel safe. Be wise, be careful. Right now, we're in a war. And the ceasefire was signed, or ceasefire came about as a result of President Trump's valiant work. But I'm sure that Iran is going to find some way, or at least people who support or people who want to be seen as supporting Iran, the mullahs in Iran, not the people of Iran, but the current regime of Iran, they're going to find some way of getting their pound of flesh, getting revenge. And, someone is pointing out that the United States demonstrated with that bombing of Iran that we have incredible military prowess, and you cannot stand up to the American military. But when it comes to our digital situation, this person said we're like Swiss cheese, and we are vulnerable. We are vulnerable to attack, and I think we almost have to expect that we are going to be attacked at some point. I wish that were not the case, but I think we would be foolish to just feel safe. We're not safe. We're not safe. Okay. Let me go to General Flynn's account here on X. Okay. Okay, well, he has something going on about China, right? There is clearly a power shift occurring in China. China watchers need to keep a close eye on the loss of confidence by key members of the CCP, especially members of the public and state security ministries. Pay attention. Consequences of a leadership change in China are immense. Well, as I've said, I'm not really sure, but I guess if General Flynn is starting to take this seriously, I guess I have to take it seriously as well. Let's see here. And regarding the Israel and Iran, this is what he said 17 hours ago. Exact number of ceasefire violations between Israel and Iran since President Donald Trump announced a ceasefire on June 23rd is difficult to precisely pinpoint due to conflicting reports and lack of independently verified data. However, based on available information, there have been clear violations on both sides. As I stated in a previous SITREP, ceasefires are dicey. 1, both sides are pointing fingers. 2, both sides have violated the ceasefire. 3, Khamenei is claiming victory. Not a good thing. He says, well, of course he's going to claim victory. The top guy always claims victory. They both claim victory. Iran's Supreme National Security Council stated that any Israeli attack post-ceasefire would be met with a decisive, firm, and timely response. We'll see how the fanatics respond. Specific incidents of Israel acknowledged conducting strikes on Iran just before or shortly after the ceasefire's start, including a targeted attack on a radar installation near Tehran, which was scaled back after a call between Trump and Netanyahu. 2, Iran reportedly launched a last round of missiles against Israel before the ceasefire. Yeah, right. With some strikes occurring in the final hours leading up to the truce, potentially overlapping with the ceasefire start time. These included attacks that killed 4 people in Beersheba and injured others. Ceasefires are dicey. Some reports that Iran is executing people accused of spying for Mossad. What's new about that? Don't get caught with a cell phone. Obviously, there are clear challenges, and be careful listening to everyone on X, except for yours truly. Okay, we trust you. What I'm providing is what is reported by legit sources. Challenges determining violations, ambiguity in timing due to a phased ceasefire. This is why I say ceasefires are dicey. The word doesn't get out quickly enough to every subordinate commander. Both sides will lie. These will be referred to as mutual accusations. It is extremely difficult to verify. Okay, let me unshare this. Okay. It is extremely difficult to verify because there is no neutral body to do so. The UN sucks and is anti-Israel anyway. Propaganda and lies, enough said. The most credible reports, 1, there were at least 2 confirmed Israeli actions post-ceasefire. For example, the strike on a radar installation near Tehran and possible additional strikes reported by Iranian media. 2, there were at least 2 Iranian missile launches post-ceasefire as claimed by Israel, though denied by Iran. Sadly, people actually died in Beersheba. This suggests a minimum of 4 violations total, though the exact number could be higher depending on unverified strikes or smaller incidents not widely reported. My assessment, there were clear violations of the ceasefire, destroying equipment and killing civilians. The situation remains very fluid. While the Iranian nuclear program appears to have been set back months or years, the regional hatred remains and very little has changed. If the Iranian regime stays in place, very little will change. Pray for our men and women in uniform, because they're the ones who sacrifice and must respond to the gyrations of the political landscape. So yes, absolutely, the regional hatred remains, and very little has changed on that respect. In fact, I would say even more hatred probably is there. The media in South Korea is speculating on how North Korea is looking at this whole thing, and they're saying that, well, this just means that North Korea will try even harder to develop nuclear weapons. Well, they already have maybe as many as they could have, as many as 50 warheads. We don't really know. So, but it gives them an excuse, I guess you could say, an excuse to do that. And many on the left in South Korea, the sort of the pro-North Korean people especially, say, why should we oppose North Korea developing nuclear weapons? After all, someday those weapons are going to be ours. I don't think so. Not if the United States has anything to say about it. But well, that's going to be dicey, actually. That is going to be dicey. When the Soviet Union collapsed and Ukraine became independent of the Soviet Union, of course, Ukraine had a lot of nuclear weapons, a lot of missiles and nuclear weapons. And they gave it all up. They gave it all up. There was an international effort to remove and deactivate those weapons. Do you think North Korea will submit to the similar kind of situation? Or Korea as a whole, a united Korea? That's going to be pretty dicey, I tell you. I think there's going to be very strong opinion, not just in the North, not just among the people in the North, who of course have sacrificed and starved and everything else to provide the funds for the development of those weapons, but also people in the South are going to say, hey, you know, we wake up this morning and we're a nuclear nation. Praise God. Or yeah, that's going to be a very, very dicey diplomatic task, I think. Of course, the United States will oppose this very strongly. Japan will oppose it very strongly, and if United Korea keeps its nuclear weapons, Japan will also develop nuclear weapons very, very quickly. And China will not like that. So there's going to be all sorts of stuff going on when that happens. Yeah, I think the unification of, at least the political unification of North and South Korea, or South and North Korea, as Father likes to say, is going to be pretty complicated. You know. All right, let's see here. There's some stories about the New York City mayoral election. Now, Eric Adams, the current mayor, he's going to run. And not only that, but Cuomo, who lost in the primary, he's going to run as an independent. It looks like Eric Adams is going to run as an independent too. Who knows, if the Democrat vote gets split enough times, maybe the Republican will win. I don't know. It's going to be interesting. Okay. Let's see here. But they have a ranked choice system now. Is that only in the primary, or is it also in the general election? I have to look that up, but I think it may be only in the primary. Okay. All right, let's see here. What else do we have? Okay. All right, so let's go back to Newsmax, and they're trying to tell us that we should feel safe on July 4th. Well, we should, but we're not. Okay, the reality is that we're not safe. Immigration and Customs Enforcement Director Todd Lyons says Americans should feel safe on July 4th. Following U.S. strikes on Iran nuclear sites, the American public should feel safe going to any one of these large fireworks celebrations, for instance, because DHS has worked with local and state partners for days, weeks, and months leading up to ensure that we have all the most current threat intelligence, Lyons said in an interview. Well, my advice, watch the fireworks on TV. Okay. Iran denies new U.S. nuclear talks and downplays the strikes. Yeah, okay, well. But now, you know, the International Atomic Energy Administration is also saying that the centrifuges were destroyed, and so it would seem that the attack was pretty successful. CIA intel says Iran's nuclear sites are severely damaged, and Israel says forward are inoperable due to U.S. strikes, so forth. Okay. And even Netanyahu says now there's a path to peace has been opened up. Okay. And here, U.S. has new fentanyl-related visa restriction policy. Let's see what that's about. So Rubio announced a new visa restriction policy aimed at stopping the flow of fentanyl and other illicit drugs into the United States, imposing visa restrictions on drug traffickers, their family members, and close personal and business associates. Will not only prevent them from entering the United States, but it will serve as a deterrent for continued illicit activities. So even if one of your friends, or maybe one of your friends' second cousin or twice removed, then yeah, it sounds like that's going to keep you from entering the U.S. maybe. I think the immigration. I understand why the immigration pendulum has swung so far to the other side. But I don't like it, and I don't approve of it. I don't support it. I think, and certainly with fentanyl, as I keep saying, what's being done on the demand side to reduce the demand? Right? There's treatment for people, or at least some treatment for people who get caught up in this thing, but I don't see a whole lot of stuff going on to reduce the demand in terms of rebuilding the American families, because that's what has to happen for this to really be resolved. And White House economists, the Trump tax bill will reduce the deficit. Well, that's what they keep telling us. Okay, we'll have to see. Okay. All right. And Black lives don't matter to Democrats. Okay. Boca Raton Mayor. Yeah, I guess a lot of people are selling their homes in New York City now and moving to Florida or moving to other places. And this mayor of Boca Raton in Florida, we welcome people from New York. Let's see how that works out. But there are others running as well now, so that election is going to be pretty wild, I think, between now and I guess the general election is going to be in November. Former ambassador credited Trump for a NATO win. All right. And here, Trump-Iran strike signal to Xi and Putin. The NATO chief is saying that. And also to Kim Jong-un as well. NATO Secretary General told Newsmax on Wednesday that President Donald Trump's decision to take out Iran's nuclear program with precision airstrikes last week sent a message to Russian President Vladimir Putin and Chinese President Xi Jinping. A squadron of US B-2 Spirit bombers on Saturday night struck Iranian nuclear facilities in Fordo, Natanz, and Isfahan to thwart the Islamic regime's ambitions of obtaining a nuclear weapon. The strikes followed daily bombings by Israel on Iranian nuclear and military facilities, and Trump announced a ceasefire Monday to end the 12-day conflict. I think what happened now in Iran is projecting American power on the world stage, saying here's a president who has the strength to do what is necessary, Rudd said in an exclusive interview with Shelby Wilder on American Agenda after NATO's annual summit at The Hague. He's willing to use it, but in a very measured way. And that's certainly true, and I think this is certainly one of the reasons that we support President Trump. But he didn't get us into a long war with Iran. He just finished it in 36 hours. And if you have to do something, then that's certainly the way to do it. But this is a signal. If I was in Beijing, Xi Jinping, or in Moscow, Putin, I would be sitting there and seeing that footage. I would not be happy. I would think, okay, they are really serious, these Americans, and this is exactly what we need, projecting American power on the world stage. Rudd said he isn't concerned that the situation with Iran could spiral out of control and draw in more NATO members if Iran's nuclear program was not destroyed, as some mainstream media reports have suggested. Trump Defense Secretary Hegseth and White House Press Secretary Leavitt have said Iran's nuclear facilities have been obliterated, and Israel said the Islamic regime's nuclear program has been set back many years. I'm not afraid of that, Rudd said, and I think what the president did was very surgical. It was very targeted. It was saying after what Israel had done, with Israel not being able with their own military to really get deep into the nuclear facilities, and I mean the U.S. has, of course, the best military in the world. You have B-52s, you have these huge bombs which can really penetrate deep into these caved-in locations in Iran. This was a demonstration of U.S. strength, but also peace, because it was targeted. And the president immediately followed it up with a call for a ceasefire. And he was successful in getting this ceasefire done between Israel and Iran. So I think he did exactly what he needed to do. And I was very happy because the nuclear capability for Iran is a threat to all of us. Now, I know that there may be some of you out there as well who think that President Trump made a mistake by using military force at all. But it was necessary, I think, to make a point. And especially, there is, in a sense, Trump brought it on himself, because with the tariffs, he goes, 145, okay, no, 125, oh, no, 75, no, 50. And so I think the mullahs in Tehran thought, okay, well, if we just wait him out, he's going to compromise. He's not going to actually attack. But President Trump had basically sort of degraded his own credibility in that sense with respect to the tariffs, and so the mullahs misjudged Trump's intention to follow through on the attack on the nuclear facilities. But now, though, I think Putin, Xi Jinping, Kim Jong-un are not going to misjudge. They see now that they need to take President Trump seriously when he says that he's going to, when he issues a threat, you got to believe that he's going to follow through on that unless you do what he wants. All right, let's see here. Okay. Supreme Court may rule on Friday on the birthright curb situation. All right, we'll see if that happens, if it does. All right. Okay, Iran talks with you is complicated. Media breathlessly use early report to undermine Trump. That's right. Well, CNN, for a long time I've been saying that CNN is not a media organization. It's just the propaganda arm of the Democrat Party. And New York Times, of course, jumped on it as well. And they're always, of course, looking for ways to undermine President Trump because they hate him with a passion. They hate him with a passion because he loves America and he loves Americans. And certainly the New York and East Coast elite just cannot put their heads around that. Can't put their minds around that at all. Okay. Washington Post editorial board, Mamdani bad for New York City and Dems? Well, you know what? It turns out that less than 30% of Democrats in New York City actually bother to go vote. And so this isn't, if the Democrats now, James Carville and other Democrats are saying, wow, what's going on? But AOC is happy, right? And other Democrat socialists are happy. But sort of the establishment Democrats are really concerned. I think people, Obama I don't think has come out, but I'm sure he's not happy either. But when you only get 30% of people voting, what happens? Well, the candidate who can get his supporters to the polls is the one that's going to win. And I think this is a good lesson in that. So this is a lesson that we need to take to heart. That especially in these, off-year, shall we say, off-year elections. So for this is 2025. There's no there's no presidential election. There's no Senate election going on in New York this year. So very little interest in the election as a whole. And now New Yorkers, if things go according to script at least, are going to have a communist Muslim. A communist Muslim. I laugh because they deserve it. A communist Muslim as their mayor. And they deserve every minute of it. So now New Yorkers are selling their homes, and Boca Raton in Florida says you're welcome to come here. I'm sure they're moving to other places as well. Maybe I hope they don't move to Pennsylvania. But unfortunately, they are moving to Pennsylvania in some cases, from New Jersey and so forth, and especially to the eastern counties of Pennsylvania, like Pike and even Wayne, for example, and areas around Scranton and Wilkes-Barre, for example, and Allentown. Those places are becoming solidly blue, bit by bit. The worse things become in New Jersey and New York, the more people move to Pennsylvania. But then they keep voting the same way, so they don't learn their lesson. New York's Mamdani hates Israel, backs boycott, wants Netanyahu arrested. All that is true. All that is true. CNBC's Kramer apoplectic over Mamdani nomination. and not just Kramer, but all of Wall Street. Kramer is a famous stock analyst, I guess you call him, who appears on CNBC almost daily. But all of Wall Street is because Wall Street is located where? In New York City. Okay. But de Blasio says to Newsmax, Mamdani is not an anti-Semite. Right, yeah, okay. Giuliani to Newsmax, Mamdani primary win is a victory for communists. Certainly true, right. Yes. Do you think this craziness will end with a Republican winning the mayoral race in November? Crazier things have happened. But even if he wins, he won't be able to govern, I don't think, because everything else in New York is Democrat. The number of people registered as Democrats in New York City apparently outnumbers Republicans 6-1 or something like that. Yeah. All right, let's see here. Legal immigration grows the economy. Yes, that's true. And this is why I think we need to, and I wish the Democrats would understand this, draw a distinction between legal and illegal immigration. Democrats keep saying, "Oh, we need both. We need illegal immigration." Why? Why do they need illegal immigration? Well, it's because illegal immigrants can be exploited. You don't have to pay them minimum wage, right? They have no recourse. So that's why the big business and Democrats want illegal immigration as well. And they keep trying to say, "Oh, we're a country of immigrants." But as one Barack Hussein Obama once said, we are a nation of immigrants, but we are also a nation of laws. Yeah. Big Saint Obama said that. Yeah. All right. Not recently. That's true. Not recently. Okay. Let's see here. How Iran isn't Iraq and regime change wars. Okay. Well, certainly Iran is much different from Iraq. That's true. And, okay. Judge blocks Georgia's social media age verification law, citing free speech. Okay. And Justice Thomas reexamines 1871 realized civil rights law. You know, this reminds me that, oh, well, I'm already 2 minutes past. Okay. It reminds me of something I'm going to talk about tomorrow. I ran out of time today. All right, gotta go. So I will end the broadcast here. I'm sorry I wasn't able to broadcast on Rumble. I hope that people will be able to find it on Twitch. Anyway, God bless, Godspeed. May His kingdom come quickly.